Hey everybody, my name is Brendan Noble. I'm a young adult author. Welcome back to my Slavic Saturday series where we talk about Slavic mythology and folklore related to my Slavic fantasy series that has been recently given a name, which is the Frostmark Chronicles, and was specifically related to the first book in the series, A Dagger in the Winds. This week we're keeping with the fall theme with a creature or demon that really affected the harvest, and especially the grain harvest, that was very impactful on the early Slavs, and that is the Ovinnik. And before I dive too far into the Ovinnik, I just wanted to remind you that I'm still looking for advanced readers for A Dagger in the Winds. And the advanced readers are people that receive a free ebook copy of the book a few weeks to a month ahead of time in exchange for a review either on Amazon or your favorite retailer. And if you're interested in being an advanced reader, you can click on the links in the description below. But now let's dive into talking more about the Ovinnik. So like I said before, as well as in previous videos, the Ovinnik is very much related to agriculture, as are the early Slavs. Agriculture was an essential part of early Slavic culture, and unlike a lot of cities in Western Europe that had developed a little of early industry by this time, there was a little artisanry among the early Slavs, but agriculture was the core of a lot of their society. And this meant that the harvesting period and the grain related to it were essential for the the harsh winters that occurred in Eastern Europe, being able to stay fed through this time and through till the spring. And the Ovinnik is an essential threat to that, and it kind of represents a lot of the fear related to what could happen to that grain during this time. And so the Ovinnik is a demon that is related to the threshing house, which is a kind of barn where grain was separated and stored during the winter and harvest period, and it was a very dry place, so this grain was very flammable. And so the Ovinnik was thought as a demon that could set this grain ablaze and burn down the threshing house. And this was, again, considered a big threat, because if this happened, there was a good chance you starved during the winter, because winter months were often harsh on food anyway, even during a good harvest. And so the Ovinnik's main appearance was often considered that of a black cat that would walk around the barn of the threshing house. It could also appeared as a different kind of just creepy creature that there was a variety of things, but the black cat is the biggest appearance for it. And this is kind of common because even today we see cats often around barns. The barn cat wasn't different in that time, so there's a little bit of this interesting relation to this the idea of the cat being there, and so the cat being the one to set the fire. It also mixes along with I've talked about in earlier videos the role of cats in Slavic mythology, and the fact that cats can sometimes be troublemakers. And so the Ovinnik is one of these. And the fact that cats often want to be pleased and given offerings, and the Ovinnik is like this as well. And common sacrifices for the Ovinnik were often a rooster or a kind of Russian crepe called a blini, I believe it is pronounced. I might have completely butchered that pronunciation, but these are two common gifts that were given to the Ovinnik to prevent it from burning down the barn. And again, doing this and sacrifices are kind of common, as we've seen before when we talk about demons or protectors of certain areas in Slavic myth, that these demons need these offerings to keep themselves going, and so you don't give them the offerings, they burn down your buildings. And then there's also another role for the Ovinnik that is similar to the Bannik, which is a demon we talked about before that is into the kind of sauna or bathhouse. But the Ovinnik does a little bit of divination as well as like the Bannik did, where people would come on New Year's Eve to the Ovinnik and it would place its hand on you, and if it was a cold touch, that meant you were going to have a bad next year, and if it was a warm touch, you were going to have a good next year. So it's kind of interesting that these cat-like demon both can burn down your barn and tell you if the next year is good, but that's folklore for you. So demons are always considered omens in Slavic myth, as we've talked about before, and the Ovinnik is potentially one of the worst ill omens of all. You may not be the scariest creature just being a cat that is a little fire related, but appearances can be deceiving, and the threat of illness or a death of one or a couple people is one thing and can be incredibly terrifying, but the death of an entire village due to loss of all of your grain could be catastrophic. And so that makes the Ovinnik both a interesting creature, but also a terrifying one that was known that you had to please in order to protect yourself. And in my own stories as well, the Ovinnik will appear a little bit, especially in side mentions at first, but it appears in the novella that I'm currently working on, as that's a prequel to A Dagger in the Winds, but also appear later in the series, just related to the sphere element of the food storages related to winter. And that's all I have for you today on my Slavic Saturday series. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please remember to like and subscribe down below. I come out with these videos every Saturday, as well as there's links down below. Again, if you want to be an advanced reader, or if you would like to join my newsletter subscribers get free copies of any of my Slavic side novellas that I mentioned before. And so be sure to check that out. Until then, I look forward to seeing you guys next week.